You know those days when you get into a big argument with your coworkers, or your boss yells at you. Those days when you feel so humiliated, so angry. It's always so unfair. You want to scream at the top of your lungs. But you have to keep your mouth shut because you have bills to pay and other responsibilities. While driving, you are always thinking about that dispute over and over. That scene is in your head like a splinter. You take a shower to get rid of that splinter deep in your head, but it's in vain. You are regretful because you did not say a few reproachful words to him or her. You want to sit on the couch and relax, maybe watch a TV show on Netflix or a game, but you can't focus on anything due to overthinking. You can no longer enjoy the rest of the day or week. You can't even sleep at night because you are preoccupied with your thoughts. When I experience something upsetting, I go for a run to clear my head. It doesn't matter where I go, I just need to run. The physical exhaustion helps drown out my negative thoughts. If I can't go for a run, I'll go to the gym and hit a punching bag to release my frustration. I even imagine hitting my boss or coworkers. This helps me cope with my negative emotions and feel better. We all know the benefits of physical activities. It reduces stress, stimulates happiness hormones, it makes us healthier. So my first piece of advice against your negative inner voice is to engage in a lot of physical activity. But if it's about the person you love, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, or a family member, it's more complicated. What if it is not about a dispute? If it's about a bad exam? If your dog is seriously ill? Or worse, someone you love? I hope not that. You can't clear out your head easily by running or punching a bag. You have to learn how to discipline your thoughts. I'll give you a few tips for that. However, it's important to remember that eliminating these overwhelming inner voices does not mean resolving the underlying issues. It will simply provide you with some relief, allow you to think more clearly, and allow you to enjoy the remainder of your day. So what is the inner voice? Ethan Kross says, working memory is what allows us to participate in work discussions and have impromptu dinner conversations. Thanks to it, we're able to remember what someone said a few seconds earlier and then incorporate it into the evolving discussion in a relevant way. Working memory is what allows us to read a menu and then order food, while also keeping up one of those conversations. It's what allows us to write an email about something urgent, but not meaningful enough to get filed away in long-term storage. In short, it's what allows us to function as people out in the world. When it stops working or operates suboptimally, our capacity to perform even the most ordinary daily activities, like bugging your kids to brush their teeth while making them pack lunches, and also thinking about what meetings you have later that day, fails. And connected to working memory is the inner voice. Chatter, the voice in our head, written by Ethan Kross. So inner voice is what we hear in our head when we think to ourselves, and it can be a source of inspiration, guidance, and motivation, or it can be negative and critical. The inner voice is a normal and natural part of human cognition acquired by the evolution of the brain, and it can play a role in how we perceive and interpret the world around us. It can help us or overwhelm us if we don't discipline it. How to muffle inner voice. Ethan Kross guides us in his book on how to muffle negative thoughts. I strongly recommend this book. In this story, I cannot mention all of these techniques. I will talk about a few techniques that I use and have seen many benefits from. First, becoming a fly on the wall. Players of chess know that sometimes those who watch the game from the outside can see the right move more easily. This is because being a spectator allows us to see the game from a broader perspective. Being a spectator means not having the stress that the player has. Therefore, it leads to having a calmer mind and a clearer idea. When your internal voice becomes unbearable, try to put your thoughts in the position of a spectator watching the game. You can have a calmer mind. You can get rid of negative thoughts and enjoy the rest of the day. You can look at the problem from a broader perspective. But how do you remove these negative thoughts from your minds and put them in the position of a spectator? On a Friday morning, after a simple misunderstanding, I had a dispute with my colleague at work. I was wrong, but it did not matter who was right or wrong. She yelled at me in front of my colleagues. I felt very humiliated and guilty. When I went home from work that night, the things she said kept repeating in my mind. The feeling of humiliation and guilt was so strong that I couldn't focus on anything else. Then, a method that Ethan Kross talks about in his book came to my mind. I tried to look at the situation like a fly on the wall. I tried to see the events not with my own eyes, but with the eyes of a fly. Immediately afterward, I started to see how small the problem was, because it was a small misunderstanding, and I could explain it to her on Monday. A few hours of lost work was just a small, easily fixable problem that we often encountered. Looking at things from the outside immediately erased the feelings of humiliation and guilt that I felt. Of course, it didn't solve the problem, but it allowed me to look at the problem more clearly and broadly. It allowed me to enjoy the rest of the weekend more calmly and happily. Time travel method. Everyone has gone through tough times before. Some events that you were very upset about in the past come to mind now, and you say how pointless it was to stress so much. Because over time, solutions were found and everything has returned to normal. And now, when you think about it, you realize that you were unnecessarily worried. And you even say to yourself, if I had done it that way, I could have handled the problem more easily. Because we can think about problems more rationally when our minds are calm and without stress. When your inner voice becomes unbearable, imagine yourself 5 years from now, and how the problem could have been solved by then. Just as you don't remember some problem from 5 years ago, you will also forget this problem in the future. So why are you unnecessarily stressing yourself out now? You can cut all the flowers, but you cannot keep spring from coming. Pablo Neruda. Some problems may not originate from you. Even if you do everything you can, sometimes the results may not change. In 2008, I lost my job due to the economic crisis. At that time, my wife wasn't working and she was pregnant with our first child. I was looking for a job every day, applying to employment agencies. I was doing everything I could, but in vain. I couldn't find a job for a long time. During this period, I fell into a deep depression because I was unemployed despite all my efforts. I constantly felt guilty, asking myself, if I can't find a job, how can I be a good father? I felt inferior and useless. My mind was so occupied with this problem that I couldn't pay attention to my wife or do my other responsibilities. Of course, a few months later, I found a new job and everything returned to normal. But this experience taught me this. Sometimes, it's pointless to stress over things that are out of our control. This takes away our joy of life, blocks us from focusing on important things in life, and turns us into unhappy individuals. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying to give up. On the contrary, it's what a healthy person should do, to always do the best we can. But not everything in life always goes as planned or as we desire, and it's pointless to torture ourselves over it. Doing so will only make the situation worse, not only for us, but for the people we care about. So my advice is this: in such situations, accept the situation you're in, and don't allow negative thoughts and feelings to occupy your mind again. With this, you can evaluate the situation more rationally. It is not easy to put the techniques I discussed into practice. It takes time and effort. Don't be afraid to tell your loved ones about your problems. One of the most basic human needs is to be understood. And again, I strongly recommend the book named Chatter, The Voice in Our Head, written by Ethan Kross.